So we're here with George Masimba from the Dialogue on Shelter Trust in Zimbabwe. And George was just the moderator for a session here at the Urban Conference and African Center for Cities on transforming your city, reflecting on grassroots data collection in African cities. And George, I think this is a fascinating conference, and certainly the issue of informal settlements and informality in general, how we can engage and empower people in informal communities seems to be a common theme that I've been hearing in several sessions. What were your takeaways from this session?
In terms of the session that we just had, I think if I can single out a few takeaways, I would say one thing that came out profoundly is how do we create mechanisms for ensuring that the data that communities collect in their settlements can filter into policy spaces where it can begin to inform practice by local government, practice by city governments, and also more significantly, policies that impact on the urban poor.
When you think about how data can empower the urban poor, how does that transition get made from the people themselves to the level of the government? Is that something that the government has to be ready to acknowledge, or can the people, perhaps through NGOs like your own, reach out to the government and persuade them that this data is important? How does the process work?
As SDA, what we've done is that we have tied to the data collection processes. We've also started building partnerships with city governments so that the data that is collected by the communities can then cascade upwards into government's policy space, so that the government can directly work with the data that is coming out from the communities, so that whatever programs that government comes up with speak to the very realities that are obtaining in these informal settlements. So those are some of the mechanisms that we have used: building partnerships with city governments, building partnerships with tertiary institutions, university institutions like ACC. That way we have been able to also ensure that our data gets support from very key institutions that are respected world over. So that's one way we have made sure that our data gets into that space.
So can you give us an example of a project you've worked on recently, or something that we can see how that has happened in your country?
I will give an example of a project that we did in Harare Metropolitan Province, where we have, together with the city, signed an MOU in 2010, and as a result of that MOU, we committed to a process that conducted a citywide slum profiling program. That program, for your information, documented 63 informal settlements in Harare. And on the basis of that, we then crafted a program that started to respond to the issues that were identified in these settlements. And we identified one settlement where we did a pilot project that brought services to an informal settlement that had no services, tenure to an informal settlement that had insecurity in terms of tenure issues. So that's one typical example where we have made sure that the data that we collect is transformed into the policy space, gets into the policy space, and also addresses very practical issues that communities are grappling with, together joined by city governments.
We were talking earlier about the importance of tapping local knowledge and local history and experience and culture and resources, and that is such a powerful resource really for any government, for any community, any non-profit or activist sector as well. And it seems to me there's a major shift in thinking going on today, that people are becoming much more aware of the capacity of informal settlements, of the people who live in those communities to self-organize, if you will, around their own challenges and issues, and to be really the best knowledge about what those problems are and how they can be solved. Not that, you know, we should leave them alone to solve their own problems, but that we should empower them through concerted public action to do that. And I certainly heard that at the conference. I wonder if you've heard similar ideas. I know we're only in the first day of the conference, but if you have thoughts about what you've heard so far today and the people that you've also talked to on the panel, what have you heard about the change in thinking about informal settlements?
I think there is a significant shift that is taking place within the urban space in terms of acknowledging the role of communities in informing development. And I think that's very positive. But I think I should hasten to point out that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of really accepting poor communities as genuine partners in development, in terms of poor communities as partners who can contribute to solutions that address their problems. I think we still have a lot to do, especially with regards to institutionalizing this, to making sure that this is converted into policy positions that then guide practice. I think in that area we still have a lot to do, even though generally I would say we are impressed by the progress that we have made as SDI.
Well, that's terrific, and as I said to your colleagues, that's really impressive work that you've all done and that you've done with the Dialogue on Shelter Trust as well. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.